Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the TraxionGG podcast. Joining us today is Marco Massarutto, the co-founder and executive manager of Kunos Simulazioni, the creators and developers of Assetto Corsa and Assetto Corsa Competizione. As many sim racers know, the 2014 original Assetto Corsa is still played by an enthusiastic group of supporters to this day, and Competizione has just received a new generation console update, but also additional DLC with more on the way soon too. There's still a lot going on in the world of Assetto Corsa, and with the upcoming Assetto Corsa 2, a lot more to come in the future too. So, in our conversation we discussed DLC, upcoming tracks, Esports, console versions, and also the upcoming sequel. If you have any ideas as to what you'd like to see from Assetto Corsa in the future, please do let us know on the TraxionGG website in the comments section, or find our YouTube channel, find this episode, and place a comment there too. We'd love your feedback. That's it for now. I'll join you on the other end, but here we are in conversation with Marco Massarutto. So Marco, thank you for joining us. How are you today?
All good, thank you. What about you?
Yeah, not too bad. I mean, we get to talk about Assetto Corsa, so that's always a good day. Before we dig in, I'd like to talk about, obviously, Competizione and the future and the recent Esports and DLC and what it's like to develop the title. But before we jump into that, what does a typical day look like for yourself?
Well, things have been changing in the last 3 years a lot, also due to the pandemic. If you think that in 2019, I spent almost 60 days away from home for business travels and so on. And things have changed a lot. So I usually spend a lot of time in video calls like this one, discussing with our partners, licensors, suppliers, customers. Things have been changed a bit, and also my role in the company is not anymore the same I had at the beginning, right. Because now I have a bigger managing position. But sometimes it's much more boring, honestly, because you have to manage contract agreements, the team, and so on. And while especially at the start, my job was much more closer to the production side, quality control and this kind of things. But I'm talking about the times where we were in 6 people. So each one did really a lot of things. Exciting times. Today I'm very satisfied about the way how we did with the Assetto Corsa franchise. Is a bigger responsibility, also because the connection with the publisher now is stronger than before, because 505 Games owns the Kunos studio. We are very lucky because they guaranteed to us a very high level of freedom. So by this point of view, we don't have any interference with the publisher.
I see.
We really trust in the way how we work. But this is not very common usually. So we have the feeling that we have the bigger shoulders to make bigger projects, but with the same level of independence we had before.
I see. That seems like a good working relationship.
Yeah.
And you mentioned there that you were once like a very small team, maybe 6 people, and you were perhaps more involved in the production of the titles. How big is the Kunos team today? And what's it like working with a bigger team?
Yeah, now we have 30 full-time employees, 29 actually.
Oh, okay.
But if we consider also some freelance artists and the 505 teams that cooperate with us for the good of the brand, we can consider 40 to 45 people. And the workflow has changed a lot because you need to have some people that manage the other little teams. So things have been changed a lot. And when we started to work on Competizione, we were not used yet to manage a bigger team. At that time, we were, I think, 18 people when we start to work on Competizione. And it was a completely new project. So we didn't have a sort of track that the guys followed, just jumping in an existing project, but it was a new one. And we needed some time and also some management course in order to being used to work in a bigger team, because it's much more complex than before.
That's still a relatively compact team in terms of video games as a whole, let's say.
Absolutely.
There's some giant companies out there. So you still have a lot of control over the quality, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Recently, there was the Challengers Pack DLC released, amongst the many things that we're going to discuss. Mm-hmm. Do you have a favorite car from the selection yourself?
Well, actually, it's a sort of dream pack, so all the cars are nice, but I don't want to be politically correct. I have my favorite one, that is the Porsche GT3 Cup. But not without a reason, but I think mainly because I had the privilege to drive it on the track in Brno last year. I had the chance
business purposes.
Yeah, sure. It's it's a dirty job that must be done, So actually, this chance, I was there to drive a GP2 car within Thomas Hagenheimer, that is the CEO and founder of the Fanatec brand.
Yeah.
And in the pit boxes closer to us, there was this GT3 Cup team. It was there for testing, and they offered me the chance to drive the car, and I said, okay, why not? So 4 very exciting laps until the last one, because I got a lot of confidence by the very beginning with this car. But it was very cold, because there were, I think, 10 to 11 degrees, and they're not the best possible conditions for tires. And at the 4th lap, I had a bad spin at the rear.
Oops.
So yeah, oops is the right word, because I started to push a bit more. And I was lucky enough just to avoid a big crash to the barriers, so just very little scratches, just polish, and that's it. I was really, really lucky, because when we go outside, we were pushing a bit. So, but I have been good enough to avoid the crash. But despite of this, has been a really great experience, because the feeling I had with that car, it was awesome, and it was like I drove that car much time before. So definitely, despite the little crash, I have a very good memory of that test, and definitely the car we reproduced in the DLC really represents very well also the handling of the real one.
You're one of the few people now that can directly relate that and say, yes, this is realistic.
Yeah, right, definitely.
And thankfully, it was you were able to polish out the light scratches, because unlike the game, if you have a big incident, the bill can be quite a lot. It can be very expensive, can't it? What have you seen any fan feedback to the new pack so far?
Well, the feedback was just enthusiastic. We need some good time before to release a new DLC, usually, because we paid a lot of attention of each single detail. This, I think, this is one of the stronger points in our team, because we have developers that are before sim racers. So they really pay a lot of attention of each single detail, and when they see that there is a margin of improvement, they go for it. So, and we are lucky enough to have a very big community that can appreciate this kind of approach, and they really appreciate the quality of the products we release. So the feedback has been very good. Also with this DLC, that was successful both in terms of sales and new users, and the feedback we received from the community.
That's good. I think it's very affordable for what you get as well, right? It's not an expensive DLC.
We always try to keep this policy to keep the prices as lower as possible, in order to let as many people as possible to enjoy it. The problem is that in the last few years, some things are changing in the licensing policy, they are getting much more expensive than before. And also the licensors and the car manufacturers are much more keen to make sure that their brand and their cars are represented in a proper way. And this requires an even bigger workflow at our side, especially for the submission and approval process. And this results in additional costs also at our side. So, but as longer we can keep the prices lower, we'll be happy if people can appreciate it, because I think it's a good investment that comes back with a very good and positive reputation for the Assetto Corsa brand, for our team. People really like our approach in the development. So as soon as we can continue like this, we'll do it.
Oh, well, fingers crossed that continues to be the case. It's interesting that you mentioned the licensing increasing in cost, because I wonder maybe if with sim racing and esports growing, especially over the last 2 years, I wonder then if license holders are like, oh, hang on a minute, we can charge more for that. So it's a big challenge.
This is another point, in fact, because the esports, especially during the pandemic, has brought the sim racing to a different level and a different focus also in the way how the manufacturers and the big sponsors look at it. It's not anymore a sim racing game. Is becoming much more business. So also the manufacturers are very, very keen to verify that all the brands, the stickers, and anything else is at the right place, exactly like it was a TV show. So
I see.
we are happy about it, because we worked so many years in order to make sim racing very popular.
Yeah, well, so far that certainly seems to be the case, and the Challengers Pack, like I say, is very good value for money, in my opinion. You mentioned there about actually making sure all the stickers are in the right place, and one of the really interesting things I thought in the Challengers Pack was the Valentino Rossi livery, which is from this season's GT World Challenge Europe. What was it like having number 46 in the Assetto Corsa Competizione, right? Which, maybe if someone asked that a couple of years ago, that would be a strange question, right?
Well, we had it 2 years ago, just in the middle of the pandemic. We had a racing celebrity night, and Valentino Rossi, within a lot of other riders from the MotoGP, joined this race with Assetto Corsa Competizione. So I had the chance to talk with him a bit. And it was a very, very nice experience. He's a very easy guy, and he was very kind to everybody. And this is not so common, especially if you consider the big name of Valentino Rossi. But he really appreciated also the level of the simulation. And I think that having him in this World Challenge competition is very good for the championship. Because he can bring the attention also from the media and from the public to a GT Challenge competition that really deserves this level of interest, because it's a very high-level competition with the best possible cars, the best tracks in the world. And with Competizione, we added a bit of popularity to the World Challenge in the last 3 years. Has been a very good relationship also with them. So we believe that Valentino Rossi arrived at the right time, at the right place. And we'll see how we'll go in the future. The first race, it was quite good. He made a mistake because he missed the pit stop area. So he had to make another lap to make the pit stop. And despite of this, he arrived... the team arrived 16 or 17 maybe on 45 drivers, so not that bad for a first race. We'll see in the future how we go, but I'm confident that we will show his talent.
It's such a different discipline. I mean, certainly on speed, he's very close in lap time, right? And the pit stops is like a new procedure, so he's learned that lesson now. in the next races, hopefully he'll step it up. But he's got some good teammates to learn from.
Yeah.
So he's obviously competing in the GT World Challenge Series, which is run by SRO. How you obviously have a very good relationship with that organising body, but how did that partnership originally come about?
Well, it was looks like that we met at the very right time. Me and Stefano, we were traveling back in the 2016 from a business trip, and we started to discuss about, Assetto Corsa is performing well, is successful, we can continue to work on it for a few years and so on, but what next? And the problem was that at the time, the Kunos team was too dependent from Stefano and myself. Myself from a managing point of view. But most important, he was dependent by Stefano from a technological point of view. If you think that he wrote the 95% of the code of Assetto Corsa.
Right.
And then eventually other people, other programmers came and they brought a very good contribute to the level of the quality of the game with new features and so on. But the core of the engine was wrote by Stefano himself. And for the future, we wanted to expand the responsibilities in the team. And also some other companies, like also Milestone, decided to move, and they employ 200 people. And they decided to move to a Real 4 engine. Like Simbin at the time, they claimed that they were going to do, and also Carcraft did. So it was looking like that Real Engine was a good chance also for us. But since Assetto Corsa 1 was still a very successful product, and it still is, despite the fact that it doesn't receive any update from the end of 17. And it was no sense to produce an Assetto Corsa 2 game at that time. So also in order to test a very new engine to us, there was a jump in the dark, especially for a very sophisticated racing game like Assetto Corsa can be. We wanted to create a simulation with far less than 200 cars and too many tracks, because the Real Engine at the time to us was a big question mark. So we also decided that would be a good idea and a very good curiosity to us to create a new racing simulation that was dedicated to a specific racing series, because Assetto Corsa is very popular, but is a generic simulation where you can find the Fiat Abarth 500 from the 60s to the latest Ferrari prototype. We wanted to see what we were able to do with a racing series with one tire compound, one kind of racing rules, and blah blah blah. And we evaluated the best option on the field. And except for the Formula One, that was too expensive and was an exclusive for Codemaster at the time and still now. And the other two options that were in interest to us were the WEC, so the endurance with Le Mans and so on, and the World Challenge that at the time was named the Blancpain GT Series. And we decided to go with the Blancpain, because of the number of the tracks in the calendar were far higher than in the WEC. Right. And because we wanted to create cars that were and are very popular to very different kind of users. I mean, the GT cars like Ferrari, Aston Martin, Lamborghini, Audi, and so on. They are very beautiful cars and they are not so extreme to drive. So we contacted the SRO to have a meeting with them to see if they were interested to create, to have a game based on their series. And they were just happy because at the time they were actually looking for a specific simulation dedicated on their franchise. And what they said it was that MotoGP, Formula One, WEC, or the WRC, they have their official games, and we don't. So you are totally welcome. And we found a very good agreement. They supported us a lot in terms of supporting us also with the teams. We have been very welcomed also by the race teams and the drivers, because many of them, they were already using Assetto Corsa for their training. And when they discovered that we were going to produce their official simulation, they really gave us a very good contribute and support in order to create the best possible simulation of the GT3 championship.
I see. It seems like it was very good timing. They were looking for someone, you were looking for them. Happy days.
It wasn't just perfect, but we were lucky.
Yeah,
you need a bit of luck,
That's true. And also a lot of hard work, but it seems like it's worked out very well. And actually, it's not just the platform, it's also the SRO Esports that use Assetto Corsa Competizione. There's a new season with the Sprint Europe Championship just starting actually the day before we recorded this. And there's also several other esports events that the platform's used for, right? Yeah. Whether it's SimGrid or Ferrari Esports this year is used Assetto Corsa last year, but also Competizione for this year. So firstly, do you have any involvement in the setup or arrangement of these esports event or discussions? And secondly, what do you think are the next steps esports can take to become even more popular?
Well, with SRO and Ferrari and Lamborghini, for example, now also with Alpine, we have a direct relationship, and we support them in the way how they need for the competition, for the esports program. Because there are official esports programs like the one Ferrari did right this year with Bellas and the GT Challenge. So it's very important to us to support them in a way they can be happy, and on the other side they can show the Assetto Corsa franchise at the very best. So we try to guarantee them the support they need. I have to say that we manage the software and the functionalities in a way that makes these organizations very independent from us in the way how they can manage the championship. So for the future, what I think that we can improve, but we as sim racing developers, not just Kunos, is that maybe in the future we could work to provide even better broadcasting systems and tools for the marshals to evaluate race accidents or things like this, because esports is becoming far more professional than in the past. Yeah. So, and we see that also in the real Formula One. Last year we saw some little mess here and there. So it's not easy at all.
Definitely.
But I think that we can allow even more players and drivers to join these competitions and enjoy them, providing to the organizations the tools they need in order to push the esports at the best.
Yeah, it's doing really well at the minute, but there's always scope to improve. And like you say there, with the big explosion the last couple of years, marshalling and camera angles and would be probably the next step forward there. Fully agree with that. That'd be really cool.
Yeah.
And there's another esports series I wanted to touch upon, which is very unique and deeply embedded with SRO, which is the Fanatec Esports GT Pro series, which returned for this year. And so I'll just quickly explain for those who don't know. It's on the real GT World Challenge Europe weekend, and on like the Saturday night, for example, some of the real drivers compete in Assetto Corsa Competizione at the track. Yeah. And there's actually teams championships points up for grabs as well, up to 5 for this year, which is very interesting and unique. What do you think about this championship? Have you seen it, and how involved have you been?
Absolutely, it's terrific because honestly, I was a bit skeptical about the response of the race drivers and teams when SRO proposed them to have a virtual championship with points that actually have a weight in the real championship. And this is a revolution, honestly. And we were really and well surprised to see that the 50% of the overall teams, they really welcomed the idea at the very first chance. And eventually also the other joined the competition in a very professional way. And they started to have a lot of training, to train their drivers, to use the simulator even more. And I'm very happy to see this great connection between real and virtual, because I think that we never saw anything like this in the past. I mean, using the virtual races to affect in some way the real championship is something that has not been before. I have to say that at SRO they have been very brave, but on the other side, they knew already that they could count on a software that was very reliable, very realistic, and even also very appreciated from the real drivers. That is very important, because if the real drivers don't like competizione, would be a very big issue. And this was not the case. So we are really proud about this thing that SRO made, and we'll continue to support the championship also this year.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I think I was initially, speaking candidly, a little skeptical when it was first announced. And then actually when you see 1 or 2 rounds of it happening, you're like, oh no, this is really cool. This is very different. And it actually helps elevate esports in general, right? Because there's nothing else like it. So kudos for working on that.
Thank you. And also there is another aspect that is not secondary, because there are some drivers that possibly sometime in the real world they don't drive their ideal car or in the ideal team, and they can use the competizione also to show their skill and talent.
Yes,
so this can be also a promotional way to show that they are very good at the steering wheel, and I think this is a very democratic thing. Because they can actually prove their skill no matter what about their budget, their money, and so on. So if competition will be used by someone to push his career, we will be very happy about that.
Yeah, that would be amazing. And it's a very good point. Yeah, like you say, sometimes the driver can't necessarily determine what team or the car setup sometimes, or the teammate that they're paired with. And here, they're just racing, right? Stepping away slightly from esports, I also want to touch upon, because there's so much that's been happening recently in the world of Assetto Corsa.
Yeah.
So, new version of Competizione on PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and S. It launched recently. I believe Untold Games had a hand in the conversion.
Yeah.
What was it like seeing the game transfer over to PC in a much better visual representation than what happened previously with PS4 and Xbox One?
Well, it's not definitely a copy and paste operation, because we shared the source code, of course, with Untold Games. They did a really brilliant job, and taking advantage of the performance of the Gen 9 consoles is much more easy than with PS4 and the Xbox One to have an Assetto Corsa Competizione that is really close to the PC version. So we shared the source code with Untold Games, and we supported them also to create some specific features, because for us it's absolutely mandatory that the physics must be the same despite of the platform where you use it. So since on console you need to optimize the software a lot, you compare it with a PC, where you can have, let me say, a sort of unlimited power. If you spend 3,000 euro for a PC,
if you're quite wealthy,
that is not a secondary detail. But we need to make a lot of optimizations on console, and we also need to respect the requirements that Sony and Microsoft ask. To approve the game and to release it, to publish it. So we worked with Untold Games in order to support them as much as we can in terms of optimizing especially the 3D assets, the cars, materials, tracks, in a way that we don't lose anything in terms of fidelity, but we can optimize the game a bit more specifically for the console. And they did the 95% of the job, because we gave them some specific support, especially for the multiplayer, because also on console we work on with a dedicated server technology, where usually on console the peer-to-peer is the most used, also because of the limitations that Sony and Microsoft applies. So yeah, it's a very complex process, and I have to say that Untold Games managed it quite well.
Is the console market important to Kunos Simulazioni? Of course, I know the majority of the player base and fan base is primarily on PC first, but it clearly must be relevant to launch in those consoles, right? Otherwise you wouldn't do it.
Absolutely. If you consider that, for example, with Assetto Corsa 1, that was not designed at the beginning to be released also on console. It was designed to be a PC-only application. And eventually, when we released it also on console, we didn't expect that at today, the overall sales of Assetto Corsa 1, almost the 40% come from PlayStation and Xbox. And this is really relevant, because on console we don't have any modding compatibility. So you get the game exactly like it is. And on PC, Assetto Corsa 1 is still very popular, also thanks to the modding features and content. But the 40%, almost the 40% of overall sales from the console. And this is quite relevant for a simulation like Assetto Corsa. So definitely the console market and audience are very important to us. We are, and we still are a PC developer mainly. So sometimes we struggle when we have to work with external teams, because you need to think things in a way that they can work, and this is not always easy, because on PC, when you have an hotfix, you can just you have to test it, but once you feel you are ready, you can just upload it and release it. On console, you need to move through another submission process. The build must be approved, so it's much more complex and less flexible, especially for a little team like us. If you think that in the sim racing world, there are no other products like Assetto Corsa or Competizione made from a team of 30 people that are available for PC, Xbox and PlayStation. So, but there is a price to pay, and this price is a huge workflow.
Towards the end of last year, there was version 1.8, as it was called, for Competizione, which was a big step forward in my opinion. So congratulations on the launch of that.
Thank you. Will
this be coming to the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and S versions?
Well, we made a big mistake with the 1.8 version of Competizione. And the mistake is the name, because it should be called Assetto Corsa Competizione 2. Because actually, we can say that we remade the game from scratch in terms of features, new features, improvements, update. It required 10 months in the development. And he usually change also the physics, the tire model, the aerodynamics, and a lot of other things. So also the process needed to bring the 1.8 version of Competizione on console is getting longer than expected. But I think that we'll reach also the new gen consoles within this summer. Or the end of this summer.
Oh, okay, that's good.
We are still investigating, but it's definitely in the schedule.
Brilliant. And I'm assuming then potentially, or hopefully in the future, the Challengers Pack that's on PC now might be available there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Will be released when we release the 1.8 version, because it takes advantage of the physics, of the new physics. But I think that will be available at the very same day.
Wonderful. That's fantastic news. So speaking about the future holistically then, not just console, but for people who are on PC already, last year there was a teaser which had some cars, which has now been released. But in my opinion, this is my opinion, I thought I saw an American circuit in there. So I know obviously you probably can't say a few things, but will there be some new tracks for Assetto Corsa Competizione? Let's ask it like that.
Yeah, the answer is yes. And and
is it more than one circuit or just one circuit?
No, it will be a bunch of new tracks. I think that they will make the community very happy because they are very popular tracks. Spoiler: there is no the Nordschleife, so I'm sorry, but because before the community asks, we'll not include the Nordschleife. So sorry to disappoint a lot of people, but it's still. But we'll include some tracks, and we didn't announce the tracks yet because we are closing the licensing agreements, and I said before, now they are they pay much more attention also to the communication. So since it was very challenging to find an agreement, a licensing agreement, I don't want to mess it up right now that we are very close to the sign. But I can confirm that we will have a new bunch of circuits for Competizione that should arrive this summer.
Nice. Oh, well, thank you very much for clarification there. So that's obviously new content. I'd like to ask about the new project, if that's okay. So I think it's in the public domain anyway, right? So Assetto Corsa 2 or a sequel to Assetto Corsa is in the works by yourselves, currently slated for 2024. How is the development and planning going at present?
So let me bring the crystal ball to answer this question. Okay, here we go. So actually, it's curious that I don't remember where the 2024 information comes from, but maybe.
Well, let's clarify it now.
No, I don't know, but actually, it could be.
Oh, okay, right. Yeah.
Definitely
it's
not
a work
later.
in progress.
Definitely, yeah, it's definitely in progress. How is the development or progressing at the present? We are in a phase now where we need to imagine what Assetto Corsa 2 will be, because we are developing a new technology for the engine. We will not use a Real Engine 4 because we need more flexibility, because Unreal Engine is a terrific engine, is great, and I think that games like Ride or MotoGP or Assetto Corsa Competizione, that are racing games that use Unreal Engine 4, they proved to be great games actually. But for the size of the team and for the way we are used to work, except for the fact that we also like to think about ourselves like technology provider and not just, let me say, gaming developers. We like to work even more on our technology, also because these allow us to create those specific tools and features that we need specifically for a racing simulation. While instead a Real Engine or any other third-party engine is usually designed to cover any kind of games, from the platform to the shoot 'em ups and so on. And definitely, a Real Engine has not been designed with racing games in mind. So we are very happy about what we did with the Competizione, with Epic Games, but now we are developing a new technology in order to fit better with our needs. And in all this, we are working also on the new Assetto Corsa. It's quite early to discuss about what will be, which kind of features we will have. It will be definitely a sequel to Assetto Corsa 1. Okay. While the Competizione can be considered a sort of spin-off because it's dedicated to a racing series. Right. Assetto Corsa 2 will be a proper 2 easy game. But we are also working on some completely new kind of content and features it will be a straight simulation. So we are not going to change the DNA of our franchise, because it will not make any sense. But we are working also to make it even more interesting for a brighter audience, not changing the nature of the simulation, so not making it more arcadish just to please a brighter audience. But we want to include some new features that can be interesting both for the sim racers and also for players that maybe they never used a racing game before, or they come from an arcade game and they want something more in terms of simulation value. And we'll see. Is a big challenge to us, because we wanted to make something that was interesting also to us to work on, and is getting us very, very busy. And
I can imagine.
Yeah, we are confident that. And we are very curious to see which will be the reaction of people when we'll announce it. But it's definitely early to discuss it now.
Okay. All right. Well, that was still a lot more information than I thought there, Marco. Basically, color me intrigued. I suppose the other thing I will ask about that, because I know we can't say too much at the minute, but do you think it's going to be a challenge to persuade people who maybe have the original or first Assetto Corsa on PC? They've downloaded and applied all these mods. They've got every tracker car under the sun. So how are you going to persuade them that actually Assetto Corsa sequel is a worthwhile investment?
Well, actually, we can't win against the some million people community that are very talented to create great content or new features. I saw some videos on YouTube with Assetto Corsa that was really recognizable with the original Assetto Corsa. And I'm very proud to see what the community did. And sometimes we had this joke in the team, and we know very well that Assetto Corsa 2 must be at least at the same level or even better, the best at the best level of Assetto Corsa on steroids, on modded steroids is now. So because we need to pair with a level of with what the community did with Assetto Corsa 1. We believe that we can make the difference in not in terms of content, because being a 30 developers team, and if we just have the other 50 people to the team, it will not work, because it's not the way how it can work, especially in the way how you can guarantee the same level of attention to the details and so on. I think that Assetto Corsa 2 will please the AC1 community in the way how it can offer new features, new gameplay, and new things to play with. And eventually, we believe that mostly of the community from AC1 and also ACC will migrate to the new one. And not because it will be necessarily better, because there is always marginal improvement, but because I think that it will be something new. And we tried in the last 2 years to understand the way how people play with AC1 today. And we are taking the same direction. So we'll see if we can do something that will interest the community.
Interesting. And judging by the comment section, and I think you've alluded to it already, if the Nordschleife is in there, I think you're onto a winner.
Yeah. Well, definitely the Nordschleife will be in Assetto Corsa 2. It's a matter of principle, so...
Okay, that's good.
But it's not a surprise, because it's one of the most popular racetrack ever. So it would not make any sense to exclude it from the field.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. Okay, well, I don't want to take up any more of your time, because as we've discussed there, you've got all sorts going on, whether that's Assetto Corsa Competizione, DLC, or a new project in the future. So simply, Marco, thank you very much for your time.
Has been a pleasure. Thank you very much for your time. And thank you for watching us.
All right. Well, that was our chat with Marco from Kunos. We really appreciated his time. We hope you enjoyed it. Clearly, he's very, very busy, and there's a lot to come in the future for that studio and that gaming franchise, as you can tell. If you did enjoy it, please do subscribe and review on Apple Podcasts, and follow and review on Spotify if you're listening on either of those platforms. If you're on YouTube, please do leave a comment, like I said before, please, about what you would like to see from Assetto Corsa in the future. Next week, we're going to be speaking to Valerio Gallo, perhaps the world's quickest Gran Turismo driver. He's also inside Gran Turismo 7. You may have come across him. But for now, keep it pinned.